And Melba, there's a cycle of violence that domestic violence experts often talk about too. I mean, Cassie Ventura has already testified that she was in love with him. So not only was this a business relationship, but it was a romantic relationship as well.
Yeah, and that's of course makes things much more complicated because usually you try to, in the best case circumstances, you want to keep your personal life and your professional life separate. But here's an instance where it's one and the same. And so now you've got the cycle of violence where you have a violent incident, then I would assume, because that's usually how it goes, the perpetrator, Diddy in this case, would be like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do it. Oh my gosh, the flowers, the jewelry, all the other things. I really love you. This is never going to happen again. And of course, the survivor, because they are in love with the person, continues in the relationship. And then there's a period of peace. It could be months, it could be weeks, it could be a day. It all varies based on the relationship. And again, over time, that cycle gets tighter and tighter, where more violent events start to happen in a shorter amount of time versus maybe in the beginning of the relationship where there might be a violent incident and then the next one hypothetically could be a month later. So the cycle is basically the violent event, apologies, a honeymoon period, a buildup, and then another violent incident. And so she's been testifying about how he's brutalized her, but then again, you see them out on the red carpet, you see, her with jewelry and cars and all of these things, which is basically kind of like blood contributions, right? Because he's trying to get her to stay with him and obviously not report and not tell everybody his business. And again, a lot of this we saw in terms of the lawsuit, how quickly he settled, because he knew what was all going to come out. And he knew once the public started to hear about this was going to be very destructive for him. And of course, the law enforcement investigation really took it over the top. So I think this is going to be very much centered on the battered person's experience and having those experts really explain to the layperson how these types of relationships work. Because again, it defies logic in a lot of ways. Why would you stay with somebody who beats you? Well, they don't beat you on the first date because there wouldn't be a second date. This is something where the
Right.
relationship develops and then the violence.
Yeah. And Sean Combs's attorneys conceded in opening statements, yes, there was domestic violence in this relationship. I mean, they can't deny it. I want to give you a little bit of an update from court. There's been a lot of photographic evidence this morning that they took from Cassie Ventura's phone, and they've been introducing that through Cassie's testimony, showing photographs of Cassie Ventura's injuries to the jury. These were taken from her phone and other devices. In one exchange with the assistant U.S. attorney, they're showing an incident from Toronto. She said she put her hair over her eye to hide a bruise, and then they went to the Hamptons. She said that Sean Combs wanted to then have a freak off in the Hamptons, so they got a hotel and an escort. She said that the escort was named Dave. She took the drug GHB and she went into a G hole, which sounds like some type of blackout. She woke up and she was naked in the shower, and Dave and Sean were freaking out. I bugged out. It wasn't pretty, is what she said in the testimony. She said, then what? Ventura responded, I spoke to a friend of Sean's and then we had a freak off. And then they showed another photograph, and it shows her eyebrow that had healed up a little bit a week later. And she has a permanent scar on her eyebrow, she said, from this. And she is shown another photo from the Cannes Film Festival. She said Sean accused her of taking drugs from his boat and threw her off of the boat, but her passport was still on the boat. She was on the red carpet for some type of event that night, and she said she attended the movie. They then went to New York. There was a commercial flight that they took. She traded her seat to get away, but he traded to get next to her. What did he show you? Freak off videos. So we've heard about this, him showing videos and then using that as kind of blackmail material, if you will. She said that he played the freak off videos for me on one of his laptops. He said he would release them. So that's some pretty compelling evidence, Tyler. How do you combat that as a defense attorney?
The only way I think this can be combated is shown that it was consensual. They're going to paint out Ms. Ventura as somebody who was in this relationship for her own benefit, whether it's her music career, modeling career, and any other perks that she got from being associated with Mr. Combs. That's the only thing I really think that the jury can try to do, and also say, well, look, the defense lawyers could try to do, and say if they were, of course, he was not acting as a good partner would be, but is this trafficking? Was she forced to have sex with different people, or was this something that she engaged in under her own volition? I think that's the defense's best strategy here. But the sheer magnitude of the graphic testimony that we're hearing from Ms. Ventura, I believe, is probably laying a firm foundation in the minds of these jurors, and understanding that there are going to be other victims who will likely give testimony as well. So even if you think these things about Ms. Ventura, you're showing a pattern of conduct, of travel, hiring escorts, using illicit drugs, traveling internationally to feel some sort of what appears to be a sexual enterprise to feed Mr. Combs' own appetite for these things.
Bradford, we have another question from a viewer. This is Shelley Taylor. She asks, what about all of the people who covered for him? Why are they not charged? And that's a good question.
Sure. The answer is probably because they're going to be witnesses. There's no better way not to be charged in a criminal conspiracy than to cooperate with the government. And that's the difference between us defense attorneys and the government. They have such massive power to either grant immunity to witnesses, find witnesses that'll testify against you as long as they don't get charged. There's all these different ways that they can get testimony at an individual. So if I go and I list a bunch of defense attorneys, which defense witnesses that the defense attorneys have already done, I'm sure the prosecution goes out. They send an FBI agent to knock on your door. There's no better way to intimidate you than an FBI agent knocking on your door and saying, hey, I heard you're going to testify for Sean Combs. We'd like to talk to you. And when you tell them, no, I don't want to talk to you, suddenly you are then a target as well to see what your involvement in this investigation could be, to see what you did wrong. So the massive power of the government is always unmatched. Doesn't matter how much money you have. It is always unmatched by a defense attorney, no matter who the defense attorney is. And I say that, because I've been in it. I've experienced it. I've had clients that are high net worth individuals that still have hired investigators, prior FBI agents, all these individuals, and still the power of the government is unmatched in these type of cases because of their ability to send out FBI agents anywhere in the world within an hour's notice to get a statement from someone, to intimidate someone, to make sure that they testify for the government, to give immunity to individuals, to arrest someone that is unwilling to come in and testify. They can have the power of an arrest and then put them in front of the judge and say, hey, this individual said that they might not show up for a trial, judge, and we want to keep them in custody until they do. That's why they have a 99% conviction rate. Luckily for me, I've been able to work within that 1% many, many times. But that being said, that power is unmatched. You don't experience it, you don't understand it until you're sitting at that table with your defense attorneys and feeling how every single witness that's taking the stand made some sort of deal or some sort of cooperation, or they're given some sort of immunity to testify against you. And in this case, where there is a RICO charge and, he's the only guy in the RICO, it's very unusual that you see one individual in a RICO and not even unnamed co-defendants. And that's really the alley that the defense needs to go down, and I think they will, is that all these individuals could have been named co-defendants. They all enabled, they all knew what was going on. They all either helped procure these prostitutes, ordered 1,000 bottles of Johnson & Johnson baby oil. Certainly that wasn't because someone wanted to get a tan. And all these different things that were going on could not have occurred without the cogs in the wheel, in the machine, to keep that turning, including Cassie. And I think that's where the defense has to go with it. And yeah, is it a tightrope? Sure. But that's why we get paid the big bucks. You got to walk those tightropes. You have to, cross-examine Cassie with the eye that she is a pregnant, 8.5-month pregnant woman that has been through a lot. I don't discount that. But at the same token, you have someone who was procuring prostitutes, was knowingly helping to fly them in, was doing all these things, and the only thing the government can say is, yeah, she was doing those things because she felt threatened. But at some point she left. At some point in 2018, she left, she got married, and she was living a happy life. And then she decided a couple years later that life needed to be supplemented by $50 million. And that's what the defense is going to go for. And that's what the defense is going to say. And as much as we want to protect women and protect that type of abuse that I'm sure she suffered some type of abuse. At some point, there's going to be some people on the jury that are going to say, hey, this went on for 7 years. Someone needs to take some responsibility. And it couldn't be that every time this happened, it wasn't without consent. That's where the defense is going to go. That's what I think is their strong point. And that's the only way to defend this case, is that you have to come out, I call it the velvet glove, right? You have to come out with a glove, right? You want to hit, but it has to be a velvet glove. It has to be a soft hit. So you can't be the Brad Cohen in this case. You have to treat each witness kind of with kid gloves until you can really trap them into a conversation where now you can demonstrate to the jury, this is why he or she is lying.
Well, we want to let everybody know that the jury has gone to lunch. So we should be able to check in with Elizabeth Millner in just a short time. She'll be able to tell us what exactly is going on in that courtroom, the reactions from the jurors, how Cassie Ventura is on the stand. Is she getting tearful today? We don't know. We know that she did get tearful earlier in her testimony. But let's get to some more questions right now. Melba, I'll send this next question to you. I don't know if they need to actually show these videos, but do you anticipate, and this question was from Marissa Monroe, are they going to show the freak off videos in court?
I think they will, but I don't think they're going to show all of them. I think they're just going to maybe show like a sampling. So again, Cassie can talk about and identify the sex workers that may have been involved, identify the locations, because again, in order for this to be a federal case, you've got to cross state lines. So if you have to establish that these activities happened in New York, happened in Miami, happened in California, that you were forcibly transferred or had to travel to each of these different locations. So the videos are going to be important from that perspective. But again, I don't think everybody's going to sit there and, watch, sex tape after sex tape after sex tape and watch Cassie be, basically raped and brutalized 10 different ways from sunrise. I don't see that happening, but I do see some snippets coming in. But I do got to say one more thing, because my inner prosecutor wants to go after what Brad said.
Yeah, I had a feeling Melba was going to have something to say about what Bradford was saying. So go on, Melba.
Yeah. But most importantly,
I think that Melba's bringing the velvet hammer to you,
Bradford.
Not Melba's a velvet glove, a velvet hammer.
Fantastic.
So go on,
She's
Melba.
always been fantastic. I welcome it.
Well, one thing I will say, first of all, is that sadly, I think all of us know people who have stayed in abusive relationships for a lifetime. And we know people that have died as a result of domestic violence relationships. So that argument of, well, take responsibility, you should leave, et cetera, you don't leave until you're ready. And ready can mean a number of different things. Ready could mean you are emotionally ready to walk away from the person. Maybe it was one beating too far. Maybe you ended up in the hospital, whatever the case may be. She left him around 2018 and there's allegations of a sexual assault in 2018. Maybe he brutalized her one time too many and she walked away. It's not necessarily she's waiting for $50 million. She just needed to get her inner gumption together to be able to walk away. And also her coming forward, yes, later in life, but a lot of times, again, it's because you have enough space away from the person and you feel strong enough in your own life. You have money, you have a roof over your head. Your survival is not tied to your abuser. And now you feel strong enough to come out and talk about it. You've seen what happened with Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, so many survivors. That's why we had to have the Adult Survivors Act that allows people to come back and be able to address these claims decades sometimes after the fact. Because again, that emotional healing is not a linear thing. It takes a while to get out of these relationships and then feel strong enough to be able to go through the entire court process, especially sharing the most horrible, degrading things that can happen to you as a human being, and sharing it in front of people you don't know, sharing it in front of your partner, sharing for all of us to sit there and analyze it. That's tough. That's not an easy thing to do, and some survivors are never able to do that.